Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's Andrew Turner, founder and host of the G&T Sessions podcast. And today we have Mr. Jeremy Bassett. How are you, Jeremy?
Yeah, well, thanks, Andrew. Looking forward to this.
Well, you're looking very tan and relaxed,
It's the middle of summer. Just had our holidays. Bit of time in Annecy.
Yeah, but you can't be a startup founder and have a holiday. Come on, you're supposed to be like, at the grindstone, yeah? Or, with your iPhone on the beach, yeah? Or your
Yeah,
iPad.
exactly. Yeah, on the Lido. Yeah.
on the Lido, that sounds a bit risky. So, yeah, you might get your kids might push you over, and then that'll be like the end. That'll be the end of the iPad. So yes, thanks for coming on the show. And I know that we met in person, which is always meeting in person is always a useful thing these days. I know some people kind of shy away from it. There's nothing like meeting people in person.
It was quite crazy. We could shake hands. We could actually.
Don't tell them
show everyone your shorts, Andrew.
Don't tell them everything that we were doing. Don't tell them everything. So we met at this amazing event, actually, which I've been quite a few times, and I know you've been a lot more than I have, called MADFest, which is a celebration of, I don't know what you call it, celebration of marketing, is it? A celebration of digital?
Yeah.
Celebration of digital
celebration of marketing. It really convenes the whole industry. I have been going since it started, and it's amazing. Every year it's basically doubled year on year. The guys who run it have done such a great job. And for me, it's definitely one of the highlights of my, professional year in terms of getting to fresh stimulus, meeting old friends, connecting with new people, and seeing the latest technologies out there. It's really cool.
And do you know? I mean, no, slight diversion. Do you know why it was created? Because I mean, I think that every year, to your point, it does get bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's bigger and bigger brands, and more senior people go there. Do you know why it started? Is it just because was it a gap in the market, or?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it I'm thinking about it as an attendee. I could either go to Cannes Lions, which I used to go to a lot, or there were some quite traditional, old school ad tech type events in London. But, London is the hub of creativity, definitely the number one in the world, if not number two, there's a bit of a dearth of festivals that celebrated that. So I think MADFest really filled a great void. And it comes at the right time of the year. It's in summer. They do a great job of catering and drinks and food and all of that sort of stuff, but then some fantastic content as well.
You're not saying that if alcohol's involved, then Jeremy's straight there. No. That's maybe not the message to come out of this podcast episode, but maybe later. No, but no, I just find amusing Rory Sutherland, right? So I just find that it's like the like the Peter Kay kind of comment about bit of blue, like that kind of thing. And it's like he swears like a trooper to Rory Sutherland. It's just incredible. It's like oh my god, I was dying in my seat. I was going, oh my god, wow. It's like getting a point.
Swears like a trooper and vapes like a trooper.
Oh, does he? He smokes like a trooper as well, does he? Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but he's a legend. I love Rory Sutherland. Every sentence he has feels like it could go up on a calendar, basically. Just.
Oh yeah. I mean, the verbatims are legendary, aren't they? I mean, that's legendary.
Yeah. Yeah, they're great.
So yeah, I mean, thanks for coming on the show. And I mean, I think maybe it's a bit of a segue. I mean, because I know that you kind of been involved in. I suppose you've been involved in MADFest in a couple of different guises, haven't you? Because I think the first time we met quite a few years ago was in you got a different hat on. I haven't got a hat here. It's just like pretend it's a virtual. It's a virtual hat. It's like a sunshade. But for people who don't know Jeremy, I mean, could you maybe just give us a little bit of an intro and segue and backstory?
Yeah, the backstory. So prior to, let's go very briefly way back. From Australia, off a dairy farm there. Our family couldn't make enough money from the milk, so we turned it into ice cream. And then it was ironic when I finished uni and then found myself working for the world's biggest ice cream company, being Unilever. And I then spent the next 14 years of my life there and absolutely loved it. If you cut me, I bleed blue. Unilever was it's great to me. It's great to our family. I moved from Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, the UK. I've been over here 13 years now. But until 8 years ago, I was at Unilever. And yeah, it was a great journey. You could say my career there was sort of defined by this wrestle of how do you take that entrepreneurial upbringing I had on the farm and how do you bring that to life at the scale of a corporate? And that was pretty much my 14 years at Unilever defined.
But I noticed you started in like taxation. You were like a finance person, were you? Is that right?
Is that on my?
Is this like from Excel to innovation or something? The story.
That really kills the vibe, doesn't it? I should update my LinkedIn. I did cancel my CPA. A CPA, which is an accounting qualification, qualified. I cancelled that membership a couple of years ago. I'm like, I don't know why I pay to these guys. I do everything I can to hide the fact that I'm a CPA, and I don't use it. So why am I paying them so much money each year?
You definitely don't look like with that jacket on. Definitely, that's not an accountant's jacket.
There's a blue shirt underneath here. Don't worry. Yeah, no, I started actually. Interestingly, I always wanted to do accounting, but no one has ever said that. I always wanted to do marketing, and we didn't. We had to pay our way through uni, and our family didn't have a lot of money, so the accounting course gave me a scholarship to study at uni, and I could do half marketing, half accounting. I thought, well, fair enough, I'll do that. So basically sold out at a young age to the accounting profession. And then I didn't love accounting, but I didn't mind it. So I ended up taking a job at Unilever in their finance team because they'd paid for our scholarship, basically, them and Microsoft and a bunch of other companies. And then, kept going in finance for the next 7 years. I basically did 7 years in finance and then 7 years in marketing and innovation. And I think, interestingly, you sort of need both to be able to drive innovation.
I was just going to jump into. I mean, I was going to say I would celebrate that background because there's not enough. No. I'll qualify that. There's not enough. Some marketeers have got that hybrid skill set, yeah, but some haven't, right?
Yeah,
and it's to their detriment because they don't. It's like if you're in marketing, sales, these different functions. Where's the value? Where's the economic value? Right? Where's the insight? And I suppose with the finance background, you're going to challenge things. You're going to say, okay, what's the payback? What's the ROI? What's the cash flow on this? You're going to put that discipline in place, which I think is something to be celebrated, especially in whatever you do. It's a good ground.
Yeah, it's right. You're right. I mean, it is a hard skill to learn as well, and a lot of people struggle with it. So having that as a base is quite good. I think it's particularly good. Marketing helps you understand the consumer and where the market's heading, and accounting helps you understand the business and the challenges from a business model perspective. So if you bring those two things together, you can really start to do business model innovation that's quite disruptive, and that seemed to work quite well at Unilever.
Well, I think that's the thing. I think if you look at it through the accountant side, if you meet a pure play accountant or a CFO or whatever, them understanding the customer and the value prop and the drivers of growth and the drivers of value, that's incredibly helpful. Because actually sometimes you can make a finance decision in a kind of a nice, maybe not a holistic enough way, and you might make the wrong decision, or just purely on the numbers, because there is that tangible and intangible element to it, isn't there?
Yes. Yeah, that's 100%. And, since leaving Unilever and starting my own businesses, I think if you don't understand accounting, you then need someone else that does. And if you're not careful, they can start to control where the ship sails, which is perhaps not the right way for things to go forward. Always. So yeah, it can be.
So you can consider your Excel skills and your balance sheet and P&L skills as a superpower.
Yeah.
Which obviously is a good segue into what you do now, because obviously it's super in it. You see, look at this. It's all like it. So I know that when you transitioned out of Unilever, when you were doing the kind of innovation foundry stuff, that you formed quite an interesting business. And what was the thinking behind that?
Yeah, so setting up, basically, the journey at Unilever, very briefly, was we tried to start businesses, failed massively, spent 40 million quid launching 22 ideas, of which none exist today. We were very good at failure, 100% actually success when it came to failure.
That's a good hit rate. That's a really good hit rate.
I mean, you can't do better than that. And then we realized
that KPI is in the bullseye. Exactly. Yeah.
I think it's the only time I have got 100%. And then we realized actually our job is not to build startups. It's very difficult to do that in a corporate. Our job is to partner with entrepreneurs. And that was the foundry. So how does Unilever work effectively with entrepreneurs to help scale what they've already done? And then we realized, in some ways what we were doing there was actually creating the corporates of the future. And a lot of corporates are still struggling with how do you work with startups. And so I then realized actually there's a huge need here for corporates to get good at partnering with founders. So let's set up a consultancy that helps corporate innovation teams work with startups productively. And that's CoCube today. So fast forward 7.5 years, the team's going really well. CoCube's now worked with over 60 of the FTSE and Fortune 100. So working with most of the big companies in the world, helping their innovation teams to engage with startups and to take entrepreneurial technology and bring that in-house. And it's working really well for entrepreneurs, for corporates, and of course for customers and shareholders as well.
And is that so? That's called CoCubed, yeah.
Yeah, so that's CoCubed.
And then you're the. I know you're the founder of it, but you're not operational anymore. You're kind of the non-exec chairman. Is that right? Or exec chairman?
So the journey from there was about a year ago now. We said, well, just over a year ago. I tell you what happened actually. So we went through, I started CoCube. We had lots of corporates that knew me from the foundry and wanted to work with us. So that was like first level of growth. Second level was me basically going out to people beyond my network and looking at, can we reach out to you? And then third level, we started to play around with some automation tools that helped to sort of augment me as a founder. And then we hit our third ceiling of growth, and we realized to grow, we had to go from founder-led growth to team-led growth. And so we did a big hoo-ha with the team. I got them all excited about growth and engaging with clients and taking the lead on these things. And they were all really excited until they got involved in actually doing the sales. And then they realized it's just a lot of hard work. And I think, for me, salespeople are sort of the biggest hero in our economy in terms of it's a lot of resilience, it's a lot of knockback, it's a lot of research and emailing and stuff that never gets read. And if it does get read, often it gets rejected. And it's those sort of, 1 in 100, hopefully higher things that get through that actually make businesses work and create jobs and drive change. But to get to that 1 in 100, you need 99 no's or blanks or whatever. And that's just a lot of, it's quite painful going through that. And so the team started to push back. And so like any good leader, I was like, you guys are being paid for this, suck it up. And that pep talk didn't work. So we then said, can we automate this? And, this was when GPT came out a couple of years ago. There are other tools prior to that as well. So we said, okay, maybe there is something we can do to automate it. And we started playing around with that. We then last year had the tool working for us, and we had 35% growth in our business in a year where most of our competitors were going backwards or going broke. So we did really well, and partly down to this tool. So we then realized actually the problem we're solving is much bigger than CoCube. This is a problem that anyone in B2B struggles with. Growth is painful. It's a lot of work. No one enjoys doing that top of the funnel, reaching out to people, finding a reason to engage with them on LinkedIn or email. And we've got the tool to do that automatically. So we then, we sold it to Coca-Cola. We're our first paying customer. And then we realized actually there's lots of people that could benefit from this. Smaller SMEs in terms of smaller consultancies could benefit, smaller agencies could benefit. And then we realized actually anyone in higher value relationship-based sales in B2B can value from this. So we spun it out in January, launched our MVP in January, launched a beta in March. We're going live with a platform later this year as well. So yeah, it's been such an interesting journey, Andrew. I handed CoCube over to my team and brought in an old colleague as CEO, and he's doing a great job of leading the company. The team's doing a great job of moving things forward. It continues to enjoy very solid year-on-year growth. So that's in a good place. And then I'm off with my team here in Oxford, building Super Benji, which we think is the future of sales.
So actually, that's interesting. So I didn't know that story. So you actually incubated what you're doing now inside CoCubed.
Yeah, we did. I would like to say, it was a straight line through to success. We incubated probably about 10, maybe 15 different ideas in CoCubes that weren't successful. And this one's still yet to prove itself. But the trajectory is exceptional. So it does feel like this one could be the one that works. But it wasn't straight line in terms of problem, solution, solved. It was more problem, solution doesn't work. Problem, solution doesn't work. Problem, solution doesn't work. And then
is it one of those? It was one of those go back to drawing board ones.
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting. And I know that you've got a really cute story about why you call it Super Benji. Can you share with the audience about that? That's such a cool story.
So we built this tool, and then one of my colleagues said, "Jeremy, you're going to name it after your son, one of your sons." I've got 3 boys, and or 3 kids, but 3 boys, and the eldest is called Hugo, and I just think that sounds a bit pretentious as a business, so it couldn't be Hugo. Second one is called Max, and that's bad for SEO. And then third one is called Benji, and who doesn't love Benji? I mean, he's cute, he's fun, he's charming, he's lovely. And I think...
Stop, Jeremy, stop talking about yourself.
It's taken 3 kids, but we finally got it right. If my sons do ever listen to this, I love you all equally. But you know what, Andrew? I think the big job for any entrepreneur who's playing in technology is to help the world adopt that technology at a faster rate than anyone else. And Sam Altman says, the pace of technology change is accelerating far greater than our ability to adopt it. And that's going to continue. So therefore, that challenge of how do we get people to adopt technology faster than anyone else is our primary job. And what we're trying to do with Super Benji is make sales technology so easy, so intuitive, and so natural to adopt that everyone just adopts it. At the moment, there's not much. There's a lot of competition in sales tools. Obviously, there's not much that's really good with AI-led sales, but the little bit that is out there is very techy. It's like, 10x your productivity driven by AI. It's very sort of numbers driven, AI focused. It will get lead adopters, but we believe our technology will get lead adopters anyway. And then our communication around that will hopefully attract a much bigger audience that helps migration of salespeople en masse.
So what you're saying is you're trying to be the friend or the helper to a sales exec, is that right? Or a sales leader.
This is the part they hate doing. No one likes it. Even people whose job is to research prospects and write to people would prefer to be doing something else. So we basically augment that. And our big passion is when salespeople do their job, 20, 30, 50 people keep theirs. And so if we can help salespeople to do a better job of their job, we will create jobs, help the economy grow. And we're really passionate about that. And I think, we're taking work that people hate out of their to-do list. We're helping augment what they do to create more work. And then in the interactions that Benji is drafting on people's behalf, I think our big aim, at least, is to put love into that engagement, to make it real relational rather than love. Maybe a strong word, but to make it like very personable and make people feel like they're being cared for rather than transactional and salesy and template messages. It seems to be the norm today.
Yeah, you mean so that the truly the prospect realizes that the salesperson has got the prospect's interests at heart. Actually, they don't want to missell. They want to sell something that's valuable, impactful, and long-term value.
We call it sales done backwards. So in the past, you would have to research each prospect. I mean, to do it well, at CoCubed, we would easily spend an hour, sometimes 2 hours, researching a company. What are they doing? What are the triggers? Where are the opportunities for us to engage? Listening to their podcast, trying to find a hook from there to engage on, putting that into like a 4-step sequence. It takes a long time. People feel like they're being heard and listened to when you do reach out and put that level of personalization in, and they often reciprocate against that. Back to that, but it takes a lot of time. So what Benji does is he does all that research for you, and then when you get a positive response, Benji sends you a briefing pack saying, here's everything you need to know to have a good conversation with this person. Here's a podcast you should think about listening to. Here's a synopsis of the podcast. Here's a question to ask to keep the conversation going. So instead of doing that research on 99 people that don't reply, you do the research on the one person that does reply, and then you go into that meeting fully prepped. So it's sort of spinning those two things the other way around, but taking out the inefficiencies basically.
Yeah, I mean, it is you're taking on a
yeah, exactly.
but also something that is it's kind of core to the kind of activity of a salesperson as well. So it's quite an interesting, change management transformation kind of piece as well, because if you think about AI and Gen AI and all this stuff that's out there, there's such a hype cycle around it. And there's all these, there's all these alleged tools that can help you be a Superman and have an S on your shirt, stuff like that, a cape on, and your pants outside your trousers. But actually, which ones work, which ones don't work, and which ones can you bake into your day job that can actually help you truly transform the way you operate? So it's quite a big topic, and as you know, because of the legacy with CRM, where some organizations have made it quite draconian in the way that they've actually implemented CRM, and this thing about keeping records up to date and keeping all meeting documented. I think it's a boon. I think it's definitely needed, but I think there's a bit of how does the organization sell that thing to the individual? As kind of like, because there's a bit of history there around, I suppose, how change management's been done with salespeople and sales forces with CR, which means it's kind of a sensitive topic, I suppose, to a certain extent.
No, it's a really good point. You know what? I think humans, we're much more resilient than what we give ourselves credit for, and much more adaptable than what we think. It was interesting. We were talking to one guy this morning. We just took him through the demo of Benji. He hadn't engaged with it before. And his first thing was, this is amazing. That was sort of his first impression. His second thing was then, this is all within a 20-minute phone call. His second thing was, this is going to take my job. And then his third thing was, actually, I'd much prefer to be talking to people than researching them. This is really going to help accelerate what I want to be doing. And I think for some people, they'll get through that in a 20-minute phone call. For others, it might take, a few days or a few weeks or maybe a few months, hopefully not a few years, but possibly for people to go on that journey. But I think that's sort of what we need to do as people, is start to think, okay, given what technology can now do, how does that change who I am, my role, my job, and where do I continue to add value in that equation? And I think, I'm not worried about job creation or anything in this world. I think there'll always be roles. We're very good at creating jobs as humans, but it is interesting. I think that change management, as you talked about, Andrew, is the journey that we all need to go on individually and collectively, as people, as companies, and as an industry.
What I like about the way you articulated the journey between CoCubed and Super Benji was actually that you're very authentic and honest about that transition between founder-led sales to team-led sales, and then the kind of dynamics around that. I think that's fascinating, because I noticed that with lots of founders that I've worked with. I've been a founder myself, and there's this thing about how do you, the founder wants to wear that badge of honor about the win sales for the proposition and the idea that they've actually created. But then also, how do you onboard and win the hearts and minds of your team and actually there's all that knowledge in your head, that tacit knowledge in your head that you as a founder know, but actually how do you get the right tacit knowledge into all your team so you can scale it? Otherwise, you become the bottleneck. You continue to
You
become the
really
bottleneck.
do. Yeah, you become the bottleneck quickly. Well, can be quickly. And that's a big challenge. If you start to realize we're not quite getting the growth that we hoped, there's a good chance if you're a founder-led business that's coming down to you and you're the bottleneck. And that was, to be honest, that was sort of a hard thing for me to articulate and realize. But as soon as we did, it really opened up that next generation of growth. It wasn't an overnight switch of like, okay, I do it, now you guys need to do it. It's much more of a bring them on the journey, get them excited, for several months, have them join the call, see, watch for a month or so, do with a lot of coaching, and then do on your own. And that journey, I mean, to do it really well can take years, to be honest, especially in complex businesses like consultancies where the product effectively could go anywhere depending on what the client's needs are. But even in product-led businesses, with Super Benji, we're able to get our customer and sales team up and running quite quickly just because the product is very simple and straightforward. But it still takes time in terms of coaching and onboarding people. And really
so the key question you see is have you got like a little archive of all these other ideas that you came up with when you're in CoQ? Then like a special kind of box of ideas that didn't quite make it across the gorge.
Yeah. The hole of failure, as we...
Is that what you called it? Fantastic.
Little pictures of plaques. You know what? Ben and Jerry's, one of the Unilever brand, they used to have a flavor graveyard, and they had a tombstone in a patch of grass for all the flavors that had launched that didn't quite take off.
I really didn't know that.
Yeah, and I do think there is something to like acknowledging failure and dealing with it properly, learning from it, and moving to the next thing. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's interesting. I've got the founder bug, so to speak, which I think came to life after stepping out of CoQ. I did feel like I would never be able to step out of that business. Actually, it's sort of built around me, my Unilever experience. That's part of my initial pitch, at least. Stepping out, having spent extensive time with especially one member of the team over 3 years, made it actually quite easy to step out. And now that I've launched a second thing, there is like a long list of ideas that I'd love to launch, Andrew.
But it's about leveling up, isn't it? Because it's a bit like the way your success then is about how you bring people through.
Yeah.
To take your idea to the next level of growth, and then you're still involved, I suppose, from a kind of a guidance point of view and a kind of a direction point of view with your chairman. So it's not as though it's not as though your baby's like floating off into the sunset. No. without you on board the pirate ship kind of thing. It's not that kind of situation, is it? I suppose. So, which I think is it's good because you get the best of both worlds. You probably still feel involved, and you're always going to feel vested with it. But
you're right. It is the baby. It's a baby that you want to see grow up and gain independence and be able to do its own thing. Like kids. My advice to founders is sort of struggling with like, can I move out of the business, or how do you go to this next stage? Is take a holiday. The way I did it was I said to the team in November last year. So keep in mind, I've been joined at the hip with one of the members of the team for 3 years prior to this. He really understood the business, and then we've been raising up the next generation of team to to be promoted into more of a client management role and all of that sort of stuff. So there were things that were going on. But then in November, I said, look, I'm going back to Australia for a couple of months. Right-hand man's in charge. Let's see how this goes. And that was a really, really good way to test the waters. Of course, it's not all perfect, and some of the balls get dropped, but more or less they did an amazing job. And it gave me confidence that actually I can probably move on from this, and then launched Super Benji off the back of that. So I came back in January and then launched Super Benji.
Just a quick question on that. It's a great litmus test. Were you completely off the grid? Were you completely uncontactable during that 2 months?
No, you're never off the grid, are you, founder? But Yeah,
You can sit there, but if you go to Australia, then you say I'm in the outback. There's no mobile signal.
yeah.
You're on your own basically.
I did have that experience in Super Benji. So this is funny stuff. Let's go there. So I did a long run through the desert in April this year. So Super Benji, we just launched it in January. At that point, we got the team up to, I think, 4 or 5 people. So quite fast growth in terms of bringing on new people. They're all early days, junior. And then I have to go off, I guess it was optional. But I'd signed up to do this long run in the desert, which basically took me out of work for a week and a half. And I was properly off grid. And we set it all out, taking learnings from CoCubed. Here's how things, what needs to be done, jobs to be done, all of that sort of stuff. Teams all, excited to sort of have a mini promotion. Come back after a week and a half, nothing had happened. Nothing had happened. So I think, that's unfair. Not to discredit the team, that they're doing great, but that it was early days for the team. I was still trying to work out what they're really meant to be doing, and coming to terms with that. So I do think if you've been doing it for quite a while, you got some good bases in place. Take a holiday, see how it goes. You can't do it too early in that business's journey, as I'm learning. And then the other thing I'd say is treat it as a transition. It's not like, okay, I have been running at 120%. Now it's someone else and I'm totally out. I think it's much more of a, you start to pull back, they start
to step down. Yeah, it's a kind of gradual phasing down. Yeah. And where were you running then? What, in Death Valley or something like that, or across Australia, or?
Through the Moroccan Saharan desert. It's called Marathon des Sables. It's like a 7-day ultra. It's a bit silly, to be honest, but yeah, it was. Yeah.
Are you a bit of an ultraman?
It wasn't fun. It was crazy, but it was. Yeah.
Was that your first ultra?
First multi-day. I've done 100k from London to Paris, London to Brighton, which was just a 1-dayer, and then this was 252 kilometers over 6 days. So basically a marathon a day for 6 days with one break day in between.
So you're like the white version of David Goggins then, basically? Is that what you're saying? Stay hard.
You know what? I was talking to one of the dads at school, and he's like, "Oh, Jeremy, you enjoy running. Do you want to come on this run with us?" And I was easily influenced, and and then didn't really realize what I'd signed up to. But anyway, we did it. There was 2 other dads basically, and myself. So we all ended up finishing. I'm not sure I'm going to rush back into it, but it was a crazy experience.
So I mean, I did the 4x4x48 a couple of years ago. The David Goggins. When you do 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours.
Amazing.
How
was that?
It's pretty brutal. Yeah,
that would be brutal.
I started at 2:00 in the morning on Saturday morning, and I finished at 1:00 in the morning on Monday morning. And literally, when you get into that Saturday morning, Sunday morning, like through the night, and then you're going through the Sunday to Monday, when you get to that final stage, it's very, very rewarding.
Henry, that is nuts. That's crazy. Are you a junkie for these sort of things? Because some people just do this regularly.
Well, I've done a marathon for prostate cancer. I've done different things. I've never done the London Marathon, but I've done a few different things. Yeah. But,
okay. Amazing. Wow.
I mean, one of my friends did the 4x4x48 again recently because he keeps going. If you want to try it, I raised money for motor neuron disease, which is what my dad passed away from. So, yeah, that was the reason I did it. But it was it's a psychological. It's not less physical. It's more psychological because you just sleep deprivation. Kind of like do I cheat? Do I keep going? Yeah. It's all that it's all that kind of thing. So
that would be. I mean, people say these things are mind games, and I think it's. I do think it's 70% in the mind, 20% training, and 10% nutrition and kit and sleep and everything else. But there's only so much training you can do for something like that. At the end of the day,
now you're doing ultras. You see, you should keep going. So it should be like an ultra every month. Because you gotta be one of those ones. Like on the surfboard with the laptop. It's all this kind of thing. He's like tech CEO tech CEO memes and videos that you see on the internet. So one of the things that we do cover in these episodes is what we call peaks and valleys. So usually people, obviously want to talk about peaks. Yeah, and it sounds like you guys have quite a few peaks. Is there any valleys that you want to share in this episode? Anything that you that didn't go to plan? Because I think, in my experience, speaking to over 100 people on the show already, is that's where the learning, the authenticity, the gold is, you can say. Not there's not gold in peaks, but there's also gold in valleys as well.
Yeah, that's so true. I think as Bill Gates said, success is a lousy teacher, and we learn far more from our failures. That's definitely been true in my life. I think, I mentioned the new business unit, how we launched 22 ideas and they all failed. I mean, it's easy to say that now, but at the time, each one of those ideas is sort of like your baby that you put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into. That was quite hard, but of course, that was like the big lesson that came out of that was the foundry. The other big one for me, though, would be I actually got fired not fired, an amicable departure was how it was phrased, from Unilever. And that was really tough. I'd spent 14 years of my life there. I'd always been high potential listed, had even in finance, had an accelerated career through that. And my vision, which was not widely shared, was to be CEO of the company. And I was, I had big aspirations. It wasn't necessarily personal ambition. It was more, I could see the potential with the company, and I thought I was well placed to lead it there. I wasn't planning on being the CEO anytime soon. I was realistic in terms of, this is like, a 30-year game that you have to play.
Who was the CEO when you were there? Was it Dave that was the CEO when you were there?
No, well, so I had Patrick Sesko and another co-CEO were there when I started, and then Paul Polman came in, and he was amazing and like incredibly inspiring. In an interesting way, he sort of did a lot of the things with the company that I would have loved to have done. So that was annoying, taking all my ideas. But just kidding. But I mean, he was yeah, exactly. Look, I mean, I guess you could just say I was ambitious, first and foremost for the company, but then and then also perhaps overly confident in my own abilities. But I only say that because I had a real vision for the company and for my role within the company. So to be marched into a room and given a package and told to take it was a huge kick in the guts. I was very much passionate about the company. I saw myself there long term, obviously. Had a vision for where we could go. My identity was really, in a very unhealthy way, very tied to my work. And so when I lost that role, I lost part of my identity. And it really kicked me in the guts for a good few days. I was like, what the heck has just happened? It came as a total surprise. I didn't see it coming at all. It wasn't like, a performance review, which I've done with my team before, or team members that I had to let go of, which is a very long and arduous process. It wasn't like that at all. So, and for people that face that, I'm sure most people probably face that at some point in their career. Like, it's a horrible thing to go through, but it's a realistic part of what it is to work, I suppose. So that was really tough. And I was then faced with like several questions, I guess first and foremost around my identity and who I was. And I realized at that time that I was taking my identity from a really unhealthy place of my career, which is not right. And then the second question was, well, what do I do next? And my minister at church, he actually asked, you have to say yourself, like, what is it that is unique to you that only you can do? And I thought that's a really good question to ask. And I was about to take a job at a big beverage company back in Australia on 3 times my Unilever package. A great role, actually. And and I just felt it wasn't the right thing. And I realized actually the experience I got from Unilever with the foundry was actually very unique. Lots of corporates struggled with this. They all needed help. We were in a good place to help them. So my wife and I said, let's give it a go. I also talked to a couple of headhunters, and they said, I said, look, what happens? I could take the job at a beverage company, or I could start my own business. If my business doesn't go well and I need a real job in 12 months, where am I at? And they both said to me, your CV will look stronger for having had a go and failed than just going into another corporate job. So I had a payout from Unilever, had this word from my minister, and then the headhunters also saying that you're probably in a good place, better place if you go for it anyway. So I thought, well, let's go for it, see how it goes. And the rest is history. So it was definitely a valley, Andrew, but out of those valleys come the peaks, as you said. And and it was definitely the best career move that I didn't make.
So I suppose talk about that thing about you can be too link your identity too much to your career and to the company you work for. I think it's giving a personal example. I mean, my headline on LinkedIn says G&T session, right? People think, you're just a professional podcaster. Have you got a real job?
Yeah.
So the way obviously these certain types of things happen is that they associate with you with, it's like a corporate structure, isn't it? You must work for a corporate structure. Yeah. So I think the thing is the good thing that came out of that, it sounds like, besides obviously decided you got some financial runway, is actually it made you rethink what are you about on this earth.
Exactly.
And being, I suppose, you probably went through that kind of, quite an emotional journey there. But at the back of it, what did you create? You created a fantastic concept that was obviously needed. It's something needed in the market. You look at I presume 12 months after when you've left Unilever, or 2 years or 3 years, you see all the positivity that comes out of you using that tacit knowledge you built up in Unilever to help 100 corporates, 200 corporates.
Yeah.
That's the power of it.
It's hugely rewarding. And and it has been, like I said, I would never have chosen that career move, but it's been the best one from in terms of the purpose that you mentioned, financially, in terms of, I would say flexibility, but I'd use that lightly. I don't know if having your own business really gives you the flexibility that people think it does, in terms of you often have to work longer and more passionately and on holidays and stuff more than if you're in a corporate job, I think. But a bit more flexibility. But it's definitely it's been a great move.
And I think the thing that you're doing with Super Benji is that the fascinating thing I find out is, so that the trigger for that was actually this whole Gen AI tsunami that hit. That you said, how do you actually build a business model out the back of that? The things that are happening in that space, is that the trigger for that?
Well, it was a combination. I mean, we always say a problem well defined is a problem half solved, and I think for us, we really started with the problem, and the problem was we hate doing that top of the funnel sales piece of work, or the team really did. For me, it was just hard work that you have to do, but for the team, they really pushed back on it. So we then realized there's a big problem here, at least for us. And then we quickly realized it's a big problem for the whole industry. And I do think, my encouragement to anyone who's perhaps thinking about entrepreneurship, there has never been a better time to jump ship and start your own business. The cost of launching a business today is far lower than what it was even a year ago, let alone 10 years ago. The speed by which you can get up and running is far faster than what it was versus a year ago or 10 years ago. So cost and speed are coming down, or speed, the other way around. And then cost and time to market coming down. And then the other thing is, I do think, you and I obviously lived through the launch of the internet and what that did to the economy and industries. And I think AI is that again. And these things come around every 10 or 20 years. And there are moments that if you're thinking about making a move, you should jump on that. There's huge changes that will happen to every industry as a result of AI and the transformation that's happening in that space. And there's a great opportunity there. So if you are thinking about it, I would say there's never a good time to start a business. It's a bit like having kids. Like there's never a good time to start having kids necessarily. There's always something that if I can just get that done, then I'll be in a good place. That moment never really comes. So yeah, I think at some point you just have to jump and go and see how it goes. For me, I was pushed, but yeah, I would encourage you just to have a go, see what happens. If it all goes bad, I'm sure you can go back to a normal job.
Well, no. I mean, I celebrate what you've done because, I think, as we said before, we started recording, is that you've gone from what you could say a large established institutional corporate into a bridge between corporates and innovation, yeah. And now you're doing your own innovation. So I think it's a fascinating, fantastic journey. You're kind of going all in on the end goal, but you've actually had that transition as well. You've helped people along the way. And that unique situation you had in Unilever, you can't replicate it. It's like some of the stuff that I've done in my career. You just get picked or you get selected and you get dropped into these situations, and you just go all in and you just do the best you can, and then you realize, holy shit, I just learned a massive amount of stuff that I didn't realize I knew, and we can take it forward from there. So that's the exciting thing about it.
Yeah, so, you're exactly right. I think for me, the jump into CoCubed, it didn't really feel like a huge jump in some ways. We were in the Foundry, we were basically a consultancy to Unilever brands. In CoCubed, we were doing the same thing, but to other corporates. So it wasn't like a huge jump. It was really using the skills that I built, as you said, and then just using them to serve other people. SuperBenji, same sort of thing. It's more, okay, we've driven growth in CoCubed. Now let's drive it for other companies as well.
Well, you see, all I can say is that you're gonna have to have 3 businesses, are you? So you got to get your other 2 sons something out there. You have a portfolio.
Look out for Super Hugo coming soon.
Well, never say that. Well, you maybe got to do maybe get the real Hugo Boss, something like that. Like
yes. That would be his job title, boss.
No, I mean, yeah, exactly. No, I mean, I think you made me think about my sons, see, Ben and James. How am I going to rebrand some of the things I do? You see, put their name into it. So
maybe change the G to a J and T.
Yeah, what's that? What alcoholic drink is that? I don't think there is an alcoholic drink we're going to do.
Yeah,
Jameson and tonic. Maybe not. So one of the things that we do towards the end of the episodes we have with the G&T sessions is we talk about the takeaways, or kind of the pearls of wisdom. So if you were going to summarize a handful of pearls of wisdom based on your journey so far, I know you've got quite a long way to go yet, but any things that spring to mind that you think you would be, if you were talking to people who were like either thinking about embarking on this or considering a new idea, how do you want to validate it, they want to get involved in the innovation space, they want to get involved in startups, because it's now a sexier thing to do, it's more attractive, it's the barriers to entry are lower. Any thoughts around that?
Yeah, good question, and pressure's on here, right? So I would say start with the problem. Understand what are the things that you hate doing, you see other people frustrated by. Start with the problem. Then think through how are you uniquely positioned to solve for that, and then start to test it out. At London Business School, when we did Entrepreneurship Summer School, one of the things that they said was pitch your idea to 40 people and get their feedback. So just share it. No one's going, if your idea is something that someone else can pick up and run with, then it's not a good idea anyway. So it's not uniquely you. So share your idea, see how people respond. If you get positive responses, then build it into an MVP and start to see how people engage. It's not rocket science. It takes a fair bit of grit and determination. I would say early stage of business is like the early stage of sales. It's really tough. You get a lot more no's before you get yeses. And you have to take those no's, take the learnings from those no's, and continue to iterate and try and find a way forward. But you do sort of need to. It is hard to do it part-time. That's the other thing I'd say. You do sort of need to go all in. I'm not saying you can't do it on the side, but if you've got that Unilever ship to always fall back on, then you probably never jump across the burning bridge. Not sure how those analogies work, but anyway, to get to the other side. So
no, it's interesting because I think that combination of defining the problem, but also the unique abilities. That becomes your moat, isn't it? Because effectively, that's where that's your IP, that's your tacit knowledge you've got.
Exactly, and that's why I do think you look at the numbers. You've got the Zuckerbergs and people like those that are mavericks that come out of uni and create the next big thing. But a lot of successful businesses that are growing today are actually created by people that are sort of mid-career. And so I do think, that base of your career gives you a good moat, as you said, Andrew, to move forward and to build something that's truly unique and valuable to the world.
Fantastic. So I suppose to finish off, I mean, if people want to know more about Super Benji, where do they find the?
Yeah, so you can hopefully you can find us on Google, but SuperBenji.ai, and if you want to get in touch, reach out anytime. Jeremy at SuperBenji.ai as well, or hit me up on LinkedIn. But yeah, more than happy to continue the conversation.
Cool. Well, thank you. That was Jeremy Bassett, founder and CEO of Super Benji. Amongst other businesses that I'm sure he's going to get involved in. And I know you're still obviously exec chairman of CoCubed as well. So it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, and thank you for your time today.
Thanks so much, Andrew.
See you soon.